Hello, this is Julie Ann. Welcome to the podcast show Life with Collective Purpose, about you discovering your higher purpose in life and answering the call for a shared collective healing of the world. Be inspired by our guests that reveal how they made the shift from the individual life purpose to a collective purpose to serve all. If you resonate with the guests of this show, you will be inspired to shift to a life with collective purpose and to answer the call to join our container of bright lights that will shine on the new world. I am a book publisher that has helped over 300 authors to unlock their gift and purpose by sharing their knowledge and wisdom in a book. Many of these thought leaders are now recognizing this transition from the I to the we and their call to be of service. If you need some inspiration to look at your life and understand how you too can make this shift, listen in to our show every week. Join our family as we share our stories and make connections that will help you to live a life with a collective purpose. Hello and welcome to Life with Collective Purpose. And today, all the way from England, I have Lord Russell with me. Welcome, Lord Russell.
Hello, Julie. It's an absolute pleasure to be on your show. A great, huge welcome from myself here to you and your audience too. Fabulous.
That's fantastic. So Lord Russell, you actually have your own podcast show. So tell us a little bit about you and your podcast show. And then I know my audience is going to be interested to know all about Lord Russell in the UK. So tell me about you.
Absolutely. Yes, my name is Lord Russell Baker. I'm Lord Russell Baker of Little Moulton here in the UK. Little Moulton is an old, shall we say, town based in Norfolk in the UK here, a fabulous little place. And of course, so it's a manorial title. I have to say, it's not a peerage. I don't have a seat in the House of Lords. It's purely manorial, based on genealogy. And of course, my title was provided to me through genealogy for a UK lawyer under the laws of England and Wales. So it's a lovely little title to have, and one that I can put forward to families. So it's inheritable as well. Fabulous. And 100% ownership in terms of corporal rights. So it's a fabulous little title to have, which I use to my advantage, really, in terms of creating lots of finances and funds for charitable organizations. So it's a great title. Works, opens doors. Wonderful thing.
Wow,
I'm very English.
wow.
Very, very English.
It's very, very, very English. Absolutely. And tell me, how long have you been doing your podcast show and who do you interview on your show?
Well, my podcast show actually started probably about 2 years ago, and through various reasons and iterations, it didn't really take off because I had somebody interviewing myself about my life, which is great. It's all about stories from my autobiography, which is called My Way by Lord Russell Baker. Fabulous autobiography. It's called My Way for two reasons. A, because I like to do things my way. And also, whilst I was in the States during COVID, whilst living in Mexico City for 2 years, I went to New York. I actually went to Frank Sinatra's favorite restaurant, actually in New York City, a place called Patsy's, wonderful Italian, and got speaking to the owners and the chef, who both invited me upstairs to Frank Sinatra's private area, would you believe? Wonderful area upstairs. Lots of photographs of Frank around, and they showed me his stairway, which came up outside the restaurant to his private area. So no one actually knew he was actually in the restaurant. He was upstairs with his private area with his friends and colleagues, ladies, I'm sure, doing what he'd done best. And of course, I'm a great lover of Frank Sinatra's music, the big band. So one of the songs I love is called My Way, So there's two reasons why I called my book, actually, my autobiography, My Way. That's because of Frank Sinatra. I'm driven by my visit to Patsy's. And of course, I like to do things my way, the Lord Russell way. So that's the real driver behind it. Great story, really. Look at little story, isn't it?
Wow. I mean, yeah, no, that's awesome. And that actually inspired you to start your podcast show then as well.
Well, it did because when I came back from Mexico City in January 2022, make sure I get the dates right, it's only a couple of years ago now, after COVID ended. Whilst I was actually in Mexico City, that's when I wrote my autobiography. But when I came back, having written it, I quickly realized that I have a lot of friends within the sporting world and other areas within the world as well. And just before COVID, I was putting on a lot of sports events for charities. So I was putting on a lot of events with some of the global big darts players, world champions all around. And so I had a huge following within darts and also within snooker as well. So the likes of Steve Davis, who actually is coming on my show shortly, actually, in the next couple of weeks, who's a 7 times world snooker champion. Ronnie O'Sullivan, everyone knows who's into snooker will know Ronnie O'Sullivan. I've worked with Ronnie, Judd Trump, all world champions, Jimmy White, all these said players, and even the likes of John Virgo, fabulous player from yesteryear, who does an awful lot of emceeing now at snooker events. He's a really nice gentleman, and Michaela Tab, of course, the first female professional snooker player. So I knew all of these players. I've worked with them all, including the big one, of course, Jan Verhaas, the large Dutchman in snooker. So I've worked with them all. And as I got back, I realized what I need to do is start a podcast show and upgrade what I was doing previously about stories of my life and make it actually myself doing the interviewing and invite guests on. So last May, literally a year ago, I invited one of the top football players in the UK from many, many years ago. Should have had more games for England. Absolute genius on the ball. A gentleman called Alan Hudson, who played for Chelsea, Arsenal, England, of course, as well, Stoke City. So he was my actual first ever guest on my new reformatted podcast talk show, and it's gone on since there. And since then, I've had film actors on. I've had from the theatre, comedy stars that everyone in the UK would know. For example, like Jimmy Cricket, famous Irishman.
Yes.
He's been on. You know Jimmy Cricket, right? Fabulous
Yes, I
individual.
do. I actually saw
Huge
that on
star.
your podcast show that you were interviewing Jimmy
Yes.
Cricket. I was like, goodness me, that's a blast from the past.
Absolutely. So Jimmy came on, and that was a great show last year. I had Tom Watt on, who used to play, he used to star in EastEnders. He used to play Lofty in EastEnders. So he's been on with some great sporting background as well. And it sort of goes on from there, and it's really increased. I've got more dart stars coming on. I've had some wonderful stars on recently from the world of darts, and I look to push that further as well. And also had Michaela Tab on, I mentioned earlier on, the first female professional darts referee who's refereed 2 world darts finals, including Ronnie O'Sullivan at the Crucible in Sheffield. Absolute genius as a referee. So I know Michaela quite well. She came on, lovely show. And of course, the future shows I've got coming up. Next up, of course, I've got some wonderful players coming up in the 1st of May. Steve Davis, 7 times world champion in snooker. He is on. Wonderful, absolutely fabulous star. And I've got a great guy from cricket coming on actually as well. My first attempt at cricket now, which is this coming Thursday. Absolute superb star coming on. Played for 14 years for Worcestershire County first class cricket team. 4 or 5 years for the England national side in both one-day matches as well as Test cricket as well. And that's the one and only Ashley Giles, MBE. He was knighted actually in 2006. Would you believe, Julie?
Wow.
He was part of the England winning side against Australia in the Ashes in 2005 and scored the winning runs off the bat to get the series 2-1, win the Ashes for England, and he was duly knighted in the New Year's honours list in January 2006. So it's Ashley Giles, MBE, coming on the show.
This is a really, really nice segue into the whole thing about England giving people titles.
Indeed.
And because this is not something that happens really in I don't think it happens anywhere else in the world, actually. I think it's only England that this happens. So tell us a little, give our American audience a little bit of an insight as to what does it actually, how do you get to be a lord in your genealogy? So how do you get to be a lord? And then tell us a little bit more about, what's the difference between being a lord and being a knight and being a sir and all the other titles that you can get in England. So Educate our audience. I'm
Well,
sure they'd be fascinated.
I shall indeed. And just to mention them as well, I am actually also a knight as well. I was knighted by, I've got a certificate on my wall here that says it all actually, Knights of St. Thomas of Canterbury. They gave me a knighthood a couple of years ago on their order. So that's fantastic as well. And that's really based on all the lovely charity work I've done over the years. So that's a knighthood. Now, normally knighthoods are given by royalty. For example, the Queen or the King or some prince or whatever within the royal family here in the UK, and you're knighted for various reasons. So whether it's an MBE, a CBE, that kind of order of event. In this case, with Ashley Giles, he's got an MBE. So that's a member of the British Empire. So for services to cricket and winning the Ashes for England, he was knighted for that reason. And that's a fantastic title to have. So my knighthood is given to me for my work in charity. So raising, thousands of pounds of various charities around the UK, which is absolutely fabulous. And I'd like to do it more globally as well within the world, but I haven't got that stage yet, but I will look to do that eventually. And that's, as I say, if I look at my title on the wall here, it's the Knights of St. Thomas of Canterbury. So, I'm a grand knight of the Order of St. Thomas of Canterbury, which is fantastic. But in terms of lordships, there are two lordships actually in the UK. One is the peerage. So that's where you get a seat in the House of Lords here in London. And of course, the houses are all split in two. So you've got the House of Commons, the House of Lords, very similar to the US, the way the politics work. But in the UK, the House of Commons is really about the common man himself. And the Lords, of course, is all about the royalty. So it's that balance, if you like, between making laws, making arrangements between what the royals want, what the commoners want, and getting balance in order in terms of the legalities. So to become a lord in terms of a peerage and having a seat at the House of Lords, that up until 1992 was really a heritage piece. So it was handed down through families over the years as peers. So it goes back centuries and centuries and centuries. But what happened in 1992, a former prime minister here in the UK called Tony Blair, a part of the Labour Party, done the Blair reforms. So what he did is he made it more political. Can you believe it? It's unbelievable, isn't it? So probably about 3/4 of the current peers lost their seats in the Lords in 1992 and were replaced politically by peerages, life peerages in this case, at a political level. So they became more political in terms of whether you're a Labour lord or Conservative lord, that kind of level of lordship titling. But they're really lifelong lords. So when that lord dies or passes away, that title is given to somebody else. So it's not something you can inherit, pass down. There still are some peerages in there that can still pass down, but they're very limited now in terms of what they used to be. So that's really what a peer is. You sit in the House of Lords, you make laws, you make judgments on what happens in the UK. It's a balance between the commoners and the royalty. So also
but you're not. You don't sit in the.
I don't.
No. So what's the difference there?
Well, the difference here is the titles that I have are more feudal. What I mean is they go back in centuries. It's where somebody in the land, maybe going back to the 1600s, for example, if not before, would have been given a title, Lord of the Manor title, by the said king or queen at the time, because of work done, completed, allegiance to the society, allegiance to the queen of country, king of country, allegiance to England. As such, they were given titles, and that usually came with a manorial, house, a manor, lands. It may well be you could drive your sheep through this local village, for example, anytime you like. You might have to even cut the grass in the churchyards as part of that title. So there would be lots of things attached to your title in those days. So what happens with the Lords of the Manor is that up until 1925, manors and titles were all of one thing. So if you sold the manor, you sold the title. If you sold the title, you sold the manor. Now, that's the difference between peerages and Lord of the Manor titles. You can't sell a peerage, but you can sell your manor and your title. Now, in 1925, a law was set where they broke the banding or the bonding between the manor and the title, which meant that the owner of the manor and the title could do one of four things. They could sell the manor and the title as one job lot. They could sell the manor and retain the title, or sell the title and retain the manor, or do nothing. So it all changed in 1925. So what happens then, of course, is people then decide to sell their titles because they can sell them for reasonable money, keep their manor, and that's how it was. So you ended up, a manorial title then became a possession, just like a house. So in my case, I was through genealogy, given my title via the investigations of a UK lawyer. And therefore that title was bestowed upon me, and I'm given then a legal document, which is a deed of possession, deed of ownership, just like you would have of a house. So it's a possession. It's a possession. So it's a nice possession to have. So I have my deed of possession, my deed of ownership, provided to me by an English lawyer under the laws of England and Wales. So yeah, I've been bestowed with my title of Lord Russell Baker of Little Malton in the UK. So it's fantastic. And of course, it is inheritable. I own 100% of corporal rights, and therefore I can push it down my family to my sons, my daughters, or whoever. So it's inheritable.
So what is when you are so if you were a woman, does that make you a lady?
It makes you a lady. So
okay.
In my case, I can bestow the title lady onto the female in my life at the time, whether I'm married or in a partnership with a lady. I can bestow her with the title lady, legally allowed to do so.
Are you single? I'd love to be Lady Julianne.
I'm not single. No, I do have a lovely lady in my life, which is fantastic. So that's great.
So is she called Lady?
Not as yet. No, not as yet. But that will happen eventually. So we'll work on that particular one together. So that's fine. So that's nice. It's not a bad thing. It's a nice bit of gift, isn't it, to give away?
It's a very nice gig, I think. I think that's a lovely incentive.
Exactly. Well, of course, it does open doors too, because if you're doing work like I do, charity work, it gets you into certain doors, into certain areas where you can, try and open those doors to create more funds for the charities you're supporting and other charities too. So it's a good thing to do.
So tell me a little bit about your charities. I'm fascinated to hear about those and what kind of work you do with them.
Well, I've got one particular great story here, because if you ever were to read my book, by the way, and I'm just going to mention it again, My Way by Lord Russell Baker. It's available on Amazon. It's a fabulous book. I think on Amazon it's in soft copy and also in Kindle copy as well. The hard copy isn't there because they can't produce the quality. I've got good quality books here, hard books. So if anybody ever wanted a proper quality hardback book of this, then get in touch with me and I can provide you with a signed copy, even better.
Nice.
But so that's where we were with the book and so on moving forward. And now I've gone into my book. I've forgotten your initial question, Julie. What was that?
I was asking you about your charity work, and I think you were telling me that you would probably talk about it in your book. I
do talk about it in my book, My Way. And one particular story in there is have done over the years, a lot of work for EACH, which is East Anglian Children's Hospices. As you can imagine, the support for that type of charity is immense and needs to be, because it's children involved. But of course, they don't just support the children who are in life-threatening conditions. They actually support the families and help them through the trauma that they're going through with said children and so on. So it's a huge, huge charity. And the patron of EACH is none other than Kate herself. Yeah, so Her Royal Highness the Princess of Wales now, of course. Duchess of the Princess of Wales. She's a Dutch. Yeah, she's the Princess of Wales now, isn't she? So she is the patron of East Anglian Children's Hospices. But when I supported them, I claim the fame against Kate, of course, is that I started to support them 1 month before she became patron. So that's great. But what happened going back in the early 2000s when Prince George was born, Kate very kindly gave me a basketful of Prince George baby clothes to put into an auction I was arranging, live auction, on behalf of EACH. So I had this wonderful basket of Prince George baby clothes to put into the auction to raise money for EACH. Not surprisingly that this was won by an American lady, by the way. So that's probably now on its way, or in its way, living in America somewhere, in obviously prime position in the said lady's house. So that's a fantastic charity. I've done a lot of work for them, and I was actually also patron of NARS, which is a Norfolk Accident Rescue Services. I was patron for that charity for 5 years. And what NARS do is basically made up of a lot of doctors and critical care people, individuals themselves as well, who not only man the air ambulance helicopters here in the UK. Once they're down from the air ambulance, they're actually going race off to the NARS headquarters, jump in their NARS cars, and carry on their work as volunteers, saving lives on the streets with cars, driving to accidents and pretty bad accidents, I have to say, that warrant that kind of activity, saving lives as well. So a huge testament to the doctors and paramedics, critical care paramedics that actually operate in that environment. Fantastic. So it's another.
So it's kind of like a volunteer rescue service.
It is. It's a volunteer
Right.
rescue service where they race to scenes in what is their response cars, NARS cars, and they're basically ambulances, all kitted out with all the critical care. It's basically an operating theatre in the back of a car that can be opened up on the street. So that's what it is. It's fantastic service.
Wow.
So really good stuff. So and so yeah, they need a lot of hats off to these guys. Really, they get obviously paid as doctors and critical care paramedics from a point of view of the air ambulance services, but they volunteer their lives to the service again through NARS as well, non-paid, I have to say, in that environment. It's just voluntary. Hats off to them.
So it sounds like you really leverage the use of your title to help other people for charities, and you also use it to get access to all these fascinating people that you interview. So I'm sure that's how it opens doors, right? Because otherwise, I guess Steve Davis is going to say, if I tried to get him on my podcast show, he'd probably say, well, who's Julianne? And I probably would never even be able to contact him. But I'm sure, how do you actually reach out to these people? Do they have agents, or how do you actually find them to organize interviews?
Well, I never go through agents, because agents are there to monetize, and what they would then do is say, well, look, that's going to cost you £10,000 plus VAT, Lord Russell, to have that person on your show, which is absolutely crazy. So I don't do that. All the people I get onto the show I know personally. And if there aren't anybody that I know personally, then I get to know those people I want by going through the people I do know personally. So it's using your openings to open more effectively at the end of the day. And if you look at my camera here at the moment, Julie, you can see some of the faces I've had on my show. So you've got Steve Davis there holding the World Championship snooker trophy. And just behind me on my right, you'll see an England international there as well. Fantastic individual player. Terry Fenwick played for England for a number of years, played in the 1986 World Cup quarterfinal against Argentina in Mexico at the Azteca Stadium. And there you go. That's why I had to go to the Azteca, Julia. I had to go to that fabulous ground where that famous 1986 World Cup quarterfinal was had between England and Argentina, when Maradona was playing for Argentina, and of course, in that famous Hand of God goal, which most people would remember. I think it's quite a famous incident in world football. And Terry Fenwick was playing for England in that game. So Terry's been on my show, fabulous individual. And to my bottom right, you'll see Tom Watt, who played Lofty in EastEnders. So he's there as well. Michaela Tabb to my left, at the far left in the red dress. That's Michaela Tabb, the professional snooker referee. And it goes on. The snooker stars, Peter Wright, of course, to my bottom left, and many others that have been on my show and will continue to come on my show, future shows too. So it's a wonderful experience. Wonderful experience.
Sounds fascinating. So, okay, tell our audience, where can they listen to your show? Where is it available? And where is the best way to connect with you and find out more about your book as well?
Absolutely. Well, my show, the podcast show, is called The World of Lord Russell Podcast Talk Show. It's available on all podcast platform media. So whether you're Apple supporter, Google, Buzzsprout, whatever media you want, you'll find my podcast is available on all the podcast media platforms under the World of Lord Russell Podcast Talk Show. So simply just look for that. Also, I'm creating videos now as well of late. So I've now got my YouTube channel, TV channel. So if you go onto the Lord Russell Baker YouTube channel, which is what it's called. You'll find also the podcasts on there, plus the videoed versions, which are quite inspirational, I have to say. Really nice to watch. And
Yes.
fantastic interviews with some fantastic people, really. And it's getting more and more creative as we go on too. So some wonderful shows to come. They really are.
Wonderful. And your book, where can we find information about your book?
Well, the book you can find on Amazon. If you search for My Way by Lord Russell Baker, it will come up immediately. Go and download and read this remarkable story. It's fascinating. And not just a story that talks about Kate Middleton, of course, the future Queen of England. She is in there because she gave me that basket of Prince George clothes for my online auction for each. But also, there's a nice little story in there as well about Prince Harry, or his real name, of course, is Prince Henry. A nice little story, which I'll just give you a brief intro to Julie, if you've got time. And that is, I was boarding the train at Euston to go up to Liverpool when I was doing some work for Deloitte going back a few years ago. Consulting company, of course, huge Big Five consulting company. And I was on my way to Liverpool, and a huge queue of people at the door entrance or the gated entrance to my platform. So I just bypassed them, went off down the platform, got to, I think, the carriage 2 at the front. I knew that's me, carriage B. On I hopped. And as I looked through the carriage, I noticed that my seat's occupied. Who is in my seat? And as I approached, bearing in mind, it was early in the morning, I've not even had a cup of coffee. So as I move forward, I'm allowed to get on for reasons I can probably explain. And I walk up to, and of course, I suddenly realised it's Prince Harry. I said, hello, Harry, how are you? I do believe you've got my seat.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and started laughing. He looked at his colleague who was with, I think was part of the army services as well. He looked very military. They're obviously going somewhere. And I get a tap on my shoulder. One of the security guards comes up, quite polite, says, "Excuse me, sir. We've had to abscond your seat. I hope you don't mind. But we've got a table just behind Prince Harry here. Is that okay?" See, that's fine. Very, very strange and very bizarre. And I didn't have my camera with me, so I didn't do a selfie because normally I'm quite good with selfies. And I was like too early in the morning, didn't get my camera out, didn't take one. I should have done. But I'm sure Prince Harry will remember that story today. And as I was walking back to the seat just behind Prince Harry, I quickly noticed there was nobody else on this carriage at all. They obviously knew who I was, my title, and decided, well, that's okay. He can sit just behind Prince Harry because he's a decent chap, is Lord Russell. And as I went to sit back, my colleague from Deloitte walks on, and he said to me, his face was like dumbstruck. As I was walking back, he said, "Is that, I think it is Russell." I said, "Yes, it is." I said, "Prince Harry, but don't worry about it. We've got a seat here just behind Prince Harry. They've got our seats." And he was absolutely amazed. So we sat down, and of course they got off long before we got to Liverpool, but that's a story that went around the walls of Deloitte in London for many, many a year. Quite a fascinating story. And that's all in My Way.
Wow, I can imagine that it's going to be a fascinating read. Understanding, what doors are opened and what access you have beyond what normal people have because of your title, like being allowed to stay on the same train as Prince Harry and just sit behind him. I'm surprised you didn't ask him though for your seat, that you didn't say, "Hey, I don't mind you taking my seat, but do you mind moving behind me?"
Well, do you know what, Julie? But the thought did cross my mind, and I did actually say to him, Prince Harry, did say, you are in my seat." But, the fact that I could approach him like that was something else as well, wasn't it? Because security is a big thing, isn't it, these days?
Yes.
They made that carriage specific for His Royal Highness's trip north. And I was allowed to continue to sit in the same carriage on a table just behind with my colleague from Deloitte as well. So that's quite fascinating. We're the only ones, apart from the bodyguards, on that train. So I did feel quite safe at that time, until they got off. So that's quite interesting too. But that's a little story, Judy. It really is.
Fascinating.
Many more in my book too. Many more.
Sorry, say it again.
There's many more stories, fantastic stories in my book as well, my autobiography, because it is quite James Bond-esque in places as well, which gives another little style to the book. So some danger, some James Bond-esque stories.
Some James Bond danger.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, originally we were looking to call the book James Bond Without a Gun, because there was a lot of previous lifestyle, and stuff I'd done, came across as very James Bond without a gun, and but we quickly realised we can't use the term James Bond because it's probably underpaid.
Right.
It's been you can't use it, so we decided not to. But anyway, I like the term My Way. It's a great book cover.
Yes, I'm really, really looking forward to reading it. And I think it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to have some amazing stories. I'm probably going to want to interview again after I've read the book,
will.
so that you can share some of those stories on my podcast show.
You will
So
indeed.
thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating. I know that my audience is going to be fascinated to hear about your stories and to listen to your podcast show. So, so the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, which is on Apple and all the other normal places that you can find a podcast.
Yeah.
Check out his book called My Way by Lord Russell Baker, which is on Amazon. And is there any other way that people should get hold of you? Either do you have a website or Facebook or anything like that where people can connect?
Absolutely. Yeah, my personal website is www.norfolklord.co.uk. You can get on there. You'll also better find access to my podcasts on there as well, and all the other great stuff that's going on. Nice little website to have a look at, have a browse around. And of course, you can contact me via that website as well. So that's fantastic too. So get in touch.
Wonderful.
If you do want a signed hard book of My Way, it's a fabulous hard book, quality covered book, then let me know, and we can arrange to get one sent and signed and all the good stuff that goes with it. It's a fabulous story.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Julie.
My guests are going to be really, really, really happy to connect with a lord in the UK.
Absolutely.
So with that,
yes.
Thank you so much.
I'm not just a lord either.
I'm sure we will be talking again.
I'm sure we will, Julie. Thank you very much for inviting me on your show. It's been a real pleasure, and all the best wishes to you and your audience as well. Speak soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this adventure. If you're ready to step into your higher collective purpose in life, head over to www.influencepublishing.com and claim your free 2-hour webinar on unlocking your story, and discover a family of support and love to help you embrace the collective call to purpose. Please go to iTunes to like, subscribe, and review so we can spread this message. You can also find us on YouTube and Facebook. Please share this episode with someone you think can benefit and have a positive impact on their life. Until the next time, live a life with collective purpose.